Hello, everybody. I know I'm way too late. Well, first of all, what are we doing? I'm recording this week's episode of The Private Citizen today. That's episode 44. I originally wanted to do that yesterday, pretty much because I will be recording and streaming another one tomorrow. So there's gonna be 2 episodes this week. Anyway, I want to do that yesterday. Couldn't make it because I had too much to do. There's a lot of stuff going on here right now. It's just a lot of stuff happening. Oh, by the way, I need to set. Sorry, this microphone is still on the old setting. I think I don't want that. Otherwise the level's not going. Yeah, that's better. Otherwise the level's gonna be all messed up with the rest of everything I'm playing in. Anyway, yes, so I couldn't make that happen. I wanted to actually then stream it today at 5. Couldn't make that happen. Now it's almost 8. So I'm sorry about that, but that's just the way it goes. Currently there's a lot of stuff going on. So let's get into this. Let's see. Let's do a little test run. I always wanted to do a test run, right? Check if everything works. Let's play some music here. And, that should be it. Let's see if that worked. Wanted to do a test run, right? Check if everything works. Let's play some music here. And that should be it. Let's see if that. No, T on the new shirt. Not a good idea. By the way, that's the Patreon exclusive shirt. Got a test sample from Patreon. I gotta say it is actually very nice. I'm not just saying that to sell it. It's very soft. The print is amazing. I'm really happy with how that turned out. But let's go back to what we were doing here. Yeah, I think that works. Let me just check everything. Oh yeah, there's one more thing I have to try. I have this. I wanted to try this on my next stream. So apparently you can play ads on Twitch now, and they do interstitial ads. So I have this button where I can play an ad. So I'm just gonna try that. It's not that I'm getting any money of that or anything. I just want to see if that works. So let's see what's happening if I push this button. Nothing. Well, that's okay then. No ads playing. Okay. Well, okay. That's I guess that's good. I don't know. If they start playing interstitial ads, I need I want a way to control that, but apparently I don't have that yet. Sorry, I'm just in case you're wondering what I'm doing here, I'm playing around with my Stream Deck. Okay, right. Well, that's that experiment out of the way then. Oh, now you're seeing everything like 3 times. Oh my God. Don't move. This is opening a portal into reality that we don't want to have. Well, I think we've got everything sorted out then, and I can start. As usual, I will keep an eye on chat in case you bring something up. In case I make a mistake, I'll do. I'm happy to take impromptu feedback, and let's start recording. And let's do this. Let's record this episode. It's been pushing it off long enough, haven't I? So here we go. Oh, actually, no, we don't go. Okay, I need to do this. See if this is like maximum. Yeah, okay. Right. So, take 2. Here we go. Hello, everybody. Welcome to episode. What? That's not my usual. What's going on with me today? Okay. I guess we need another take. Wait. God, I'm completely out of it. I might as well just like delete this shit. Okay. Let's do that again, and let's make the let's have a proper intro for the show. You're listening to The Private Citizen, Defending Your Right to Have Something to Hide, episode 44, for Wednesday, the 28th of October, 2020. With the first link, the chain is forged. Hello, everybody. Welcome to The Private Citizen. Thanks for listening. God, I didn't. Let's do that again. I don't know. I don't like what I'm doing it today. But, you know, we had that many takes. I might as well just do another one. Okay. Right. See, this is what you get when you actually watching the Twitch stream. You get to see everything. Sometimes I fuck up quite often when I do these things. Okay, what's this? Take 4? You're listening to The Private Citizen, your weekly privacy podcast. This is episode 44 for Wednesday, the 28th of October, 2020. With the first link, the chain is forged. Hello, everybody. Welcome to the show. Welcome to your privacy podcast where we defend your right to have something to hide. I'm Fab, as usual, coming to you from the beautiful city of Düsseldorf on the Rhine, where we are in lockdown, everybody. Well, from Monday. We'll be talking about that. So, Corona talk on this episode. Brace yourselves. It has to happen. Hope you're doing well. I finally got my. I'm pretty done with my office. I've got new furniture. I've got it all set up. There's still a little bit of stuff missing, and I'm not happy. Still not happy with the sound. It's still too echoey. So I might do something about that, but I don't know what yet. I've got so much to do. I already wanted to record, so this is I'm obviously recording this on Wednesday, the usual show day. I wanted to record this yesterday, but just couldn't get around to it. This is because we might, in all likelihood, have another episode this week. I'm working on that. So yeah, I wanted to, space them out a little bit more. I got some stuff on at the end of the week, so I can release an episode there on the weekend. But, it's just the way it goes right now. And also then a lot of stuff has happened. And it's just, it's just sometimes things don't go as you planned them. But you have an episode now, so let's get into it. What are we going to talk about today? I wanted to originally, I had envisioned I'm going to talk about a little bit more about the Cyberbunker case and some of the some more details on it, because I had gotten some feedback by producers who said they really liked that case and my retelling of it. So and since I did the episode, I researched it quite a bit more for some other stories I've been writing. So I'm going to do that. I'm going to give you some more details. But then we also have to talk about the new lockdown that is happening in Germany from Monday, which will have also some privacy implications, of course. So that's going to be our topics for today. But before we get into that, I got some housekeeping to take care of. So I mentioned that Patreon gives you the ability to produce merch, and I always had people saying, why don't you have some merch for the podcast? And Patreon does it in a way where I just I'll just upload a design, and they take care of the shipping and everything. And I wanted to do that because it's people like merchandising, and it's just a good option for me because it's not that much work. So I did it. I created a T-shirt that you can only get when you subscribe at the $30 a month level, and so I had some images. They have some mock-ups, of course, but I really wanted to have this shirt in my hands and to have a look and to give you an idea of what it's like, because sometimes with merchandising it's hit and miss. And so I've contacted them, and they sent me a sample shirt, which interestingly they shipped from Latvia, which got to me without any problems. I guess no import duties or anything, and it's a great shirt. It feels amazing. It feels really good. It's really soft and really. It's just the T-shirt itself, nice quality. It's like that dark gray color that I really wanted. So I like that, and the prints really turned out really nicely. So I put a picture in the show notes. As always, privatecitizen.press. You can go there and have a look for yourself. I took a picture with me wearing it, and I'm currently actually looking up because I don't know if Latvia is in the European Union. It is in the European Union, which I thought it was, but I just want to make sure. Wow, I wasn't aware of their flag. Their flag looks quite like the Austrian flag, but a little bit, but not quite. So, of course, that's why I didn't get any import duties. So that's cool. So that works. I don't know when they say they ship worldwide. So I don't know where they will be shipping from if you are in the US, but they take care of fulfillment, and they didn't mention anything about import duties. So I'm guessing they'll have fulfillment pretty much anywhere. If you decide to subscribe at that level and you get a shirt sent and you have problems with that, please contact me and let me know. We might be able to work something out, and I certainly want to know about it. But so far, I'm really happy. I think this shirt turned out well. It's the quality-wise the best merchandising I've ever done for anything. So I'm really happy with it. So if you wanted, if you were on the fence, I can recommend it. I really like this shirt. And I think that's pretty much it for the housekeeping as far as I am aware. I think that's everything. So we should probably get into the first topic, which is kind of something that came up today. We have, of course, news from the Robert Koch Institute and the German government. The cases are rising. Be advised, the cases are rising. The second wave is coming. So we have unprecedented coronavirus cases in Germany. Of course, everybody says, they even say that on news sites now, which I think is good. That's an improvement. everybody says there's of course more testing going on, so you really can't compare the numbers to the first wave, but it's on the rise. So they've done, Merkel has done the thing she likes to do. She got together with the heads of the federal state governments in a video call, and they were talking about new restrictions. And so starting on Monday, there's going to be a new lockdown in Germany where you're not allowed, basically, well, you're allowed to, but you shouldn't go out. You certainly can't stay in a hotel anywhere unless it's important. They don't really say what that means. But, if you got important work, you can't go on holiday or something inside of Germany. You're not supposed to meet anybody outside. No groups larger than 10 people. You're not supposed to meet anybody from other households. I think there's an exception. You can meet with one other household. No groups inside and all of this. So all restaurants are closed, hotels are closed, schools and kindergartens and stuff like that, are still open. But hotels, well, they're not closed because if it's important, you can stay there. But restaurants are closed. All of that, bars are closed. For some reason, tattoo studios are closed. For some reason, hairdressers are still open under the current hygiene rules, but gyms are closed. It's a mess. It's like all of these rules we had before. They make no sense. But I don't want to go into that. We all know that. Now, interestingly, on the same day before this meeting took place, a group of virologists and doctors and doctors associations. I think the most well-known virologist here in this group is Streeck. He's the guy from the University of Bonn who did the Heinsberg study, and who's been, there's this basically this virology fight in Germany. There's Christian Drosten, and my God, now I've forgotten Streeck's first name. That's not good. I should look the Hendrik Streeck. He is so he was from the beginning. He was more conservative with lockdowns and everything. And Drosten is the guy with the podcast who is, Streeck is the guy who's actually doing research, in my view. Drosten is the guy who just runs an institute and does podcasts now. He's all in for the lockdown. Drosten said, if cases are on the rise, we need to take a pause. We need to take a break. I don't know what that means. Taking, putting our lives on hold, I guess. But Streeck's been on the other side, and he's published this is kind of a declaration. There's some other virologists are involved and lots of doctors, and they're basically saying the lockdowns don't really work. The rules don't make any sense. It doesn't make sense to force people to do anything. People will just get wary of that. They'll stop complying with the rules. We're already seeing that. What we need is positive reinforcement. We need to tell people, to be reasonable, and then the people basically, they're not really saying that, but I'm kind of reading between the lines. They're basically saying, that you will have a certain amount of people that will listen to that, and some people won't, and they will never listen to it, right? Those are the people who don't care. Like, you can make rules and you can threaten them with fines, and they still don't care. So I actually think it's a good idea, and I think they're on the right track there. And their alternative solution to a lockdown is to have this fine-grained, what they call a traffic light system, where fine-grained on every, not on a federal state level, much more fine on a city or county or even smaller level, you'd have this traffic light system where you go okay, we are green, and that's supposed to reflect the current situation in hospitals and, with healthcare providers. And, if you're green, everything's okay. If you're yellow, you're getting into dangerous areas. And if you're red, you're running out of capacity for ICU beds and stuff like that. And so I guess their idea is kind of to have the system so that people then keep themselves in check. They know, I'm in Düsseldorf, right? We're in an orange area, or we're in a red area, so people should be more careful. Interestingly that they put that out right before the Merkel meeting, the whole Zoom or whatever, the video call. I find this. I think it generally it makes sense what they're saying. I feel like the second lockdown is going to be really. I mean, I certainly hope that some people are now gonna start to question these measures. I don't know, you that you're listening to this, what your situation is, wherever you are, the people you know, and as you know, I'm always interested in this. I'm interested in feedback. I'm interested in comments from people. I mean, you can do this anonymously. PrivateCitizen.press has contact details on there. They go to my blog. There's a contact page there. The blog's at fab.industries. There's a contact page there. You can contact me anonymously. There are many ways of contacting me. We also now have an IRC channel, which is #FabIndustries on Freenode. There's many ways of contacting me, and I'm just interested in hearing from people and their experiences. So I know relatively close relatives. They're relatives of me. Work in the hospitality industry, right? I somebody in my further in my family circle. They're not really that related, but I don't know how to explain. People I know, they work as in a restaurant or they run a restaurant in a hotel, and it's hell for them. I mean, they're on reduced pay as it stands for, I think, till December 2021. It's just horrible. I mean, there's those people who've lost their jobs. They don't know what they shall do now. I mean, there's people who are thinking about just going into another industry, which you're just saying, okay, yeah, just do that. But, these are people who do what they do because they love doing it. And now they might have no other choice to, just completely do another apprenticeship or something, which is, that's just horrible. There's lots of these things going on. And this is also something, Streeck and his group are saying, where he put it very nicely in, like, they also had a press conference video call. He put it very nicely. He said, a pandemic is a marathon. It doesn't matter if we have a vaccine. We have to understand that we will have these problems for the next at least 2 to 3 years. Even with a vaccine, we'll have these rises in cases. I mean, and the guy understands what he's doing. He's been researching this virus since like March, right? And he's like, we're going into the winter month. We know now that it's seasonal based. It's gonna get worse. And that will happen next year and the year after, and maybe even longer. And so he basically asked the questions: how many more lockdowns do you want to do, right? Do you want to do a lockdown every time the cases rise, because they will rise, and you'll just be destroying society? So I thought that was very, very concise and just well put by them. And they they seem to have. Van Morrison on their side, by the way, because Van Morrison released a song called "No More Lockdown," which I just play a little bit from. Overreach. No more fascist bullies disturbing our peace. No more taking of our freedom and our God-given rights. Pretending it's for our safety when it's really to enslave. Who's running our country? Who's running our world? Examine it closely and watch it unfurl. No more lockdown, no more threats, no more Imperial College, scientists making up crooked facts. No more lockdown, no more pulling the wool over our eyes. I mean, I think... No more celebrities telling us what we're supposed to feel. I think you'll get the idea. I find it great that Van Morrison did that. I think Van Morrison's generally the person to do something like this of all the big, well-known, established sing. I mean, it's probably him and Dylan. They both they went to a lot of shit. I mean, Van Morrison went to a lot of shit with the press. In the last 20, 30 years, he thinks about that quite a lot. And they just don't give a shit. Like, Van Morrison just says it like he thinks. Dylan tends to do that too. I think it's great that he did this. There's not many people of this stature who have the balls to go against mainstream like this, and risk being cancelled and stuff like that. So good on Van Morrison. I also like Van Morrison is great. I mean, he's just musically he is. He might be a difficult human being. I've been to live concerts. I think that's pretty. It's pretty clear. I think my parents were at a concert once where somebody like in the second. This is years ago, so somebody in the second row was smoking, and Van Morrison, is really afraid of cigarette smoke destroying his voice, so he threatened to cancel the to cancel the concert if that guy wouldn't leave. He's also done like complete concerts behind a curtain because he didn't feel like going out and stuff like that, which I think is he's a eccentric guy sometimes, but I respect him for recording and releasing a song like this. Not many people would have done that. And Van Morrison, I mean, you can't argue with the fact that the guy just has a great voice. But in the meantime, it's getting even, the lockdown's one thing. I mean, this is kind of like we had at the beginning of the year. I'm kind of happy myself that I'm in Düsseldorf now, in the middle of one of Germany's biggest federal states. Also, the states around won't close their borders. Schleswig-Holstein up in the north has already, they seem to be the most Nazi federal state, or the most afraid, or I don't know what. They've already closed their borders again, and it was really shitty in Hamburg when you're in a little... people didn't understand. Like, I was literally talking to people when this was going on. I mean, I talked about it on the show as well. But just to recap, talking to people, and they say, I don't know I don't understand you. There's no lockdown. And I'm like, you're in Niedersachsen or, in North Rhine-Westphalia. You don't realize, Lower Saxony. So you don't realize what's going on because you're in the middle of a big federal state and they're not closing the borders around you. If you're in Hamburg and the federal state's it's literally the size of your city, and the both federal states surrounding it close their borders, then you can't, I couldn't, 2 or 3 kilometers north of me, when you were walking through the woods, they would stop you on the path. The police would stop you and turn you around. And it's just weird. So I'm happy I'm North Rhine-Westphalia now, so it's a big enough federal state that I can just, if I want to go somewhere, still go somewhere. And I was pretty much exempt from everything anyway because I could just always pull my press card. But I don't like to do that, and I don't like to, I like to put myself in the shoes of other people that don't have a press credentials and can do this kind of stuff. But it's getting even worse now. So the another thing that happened today is that Karl Lauterbach, which is the health expert, he's a politician for the Labour Party, which I used to vote for quite some time. My parents both used to be members. Used to be is the operative word. Obviously, they're in the governing coalition. They the junior partner with the Conservatives, CDU. So the Labour Party's SPD. And Karl Lauterbach is the healthcare expert for the SPD. And he said today that, because there's been this huge, relatively big discussions about parties going on, because they outlawed partying everywhere else, so people just do parties at home. Of course they do. I mean, they're humans. What do you expect? But then they were like, no, we need to crack down on this. And he's now saying that police should be able to enter private residences and to check for these Corona measures, as we call them in Germany, the COVID-19. We tend to call it Corona, like the beer. To check these measures, right? And to see that the lockdown rules are enforced. And he said, quote, "The inviolability of private residences can't be an argument for not performing checks anymore." And this is interesting because if you look at the Grundgesetz, our constitution, in the basic rights, we have Article 13. And article says literally the first paragraph is the private residences are inviolable. So if you go to paragraph 7, so generally the whole paragraph talks about how the state cannot enter your residence without a judge's, without a warrant. They need an express permission, and actually it's not that easy. Something like they need to prove that there is danger in delay, that it's important that they do it now, somebody's life needs to be at risk, or a serious crime needs to have been committed, and they, if they want to go in and look for, evidence and stuff like that. So there's really high standards for a judge to actually grant you a warrant. And this also includes, some people might ask, why are you talking about this on a privacy podcast? I've explained this, in the show very often, so I'm not going to do it again. People get bored. But like one point is, this includes surveillance. So we can't go into your residence to check something without an express permission by a judge. Includes any kind of surveillance, tapping your phone, putting a Trojan on your computer, anything like that. Now there is paragraph 7. Well, this article is paragraph 7, which explains that there are exceptions of this, and one of them is actually fighting epidemics. So you could argue, and I think that's what Lauterbach is doing, that they can do this without a warrant, because they're fighting an epidemic. Now the thing is, yes, that's in this article, but if you read the whole thing, it's. I'm obviously not a lawyer. I'm not a constitutional lawyer, but I'm just reading this with having studied politics and history and stuff. They're at a very high bars. It talks about the things that need to be fulfilled if the government wants to go into your residence and check something. So even with this exception that we're fighting a pandemic or whatever. Yes, that's in there, but I don't think, if I understand this paragraph, and it's an important one that has been argued in court in Germany quite some time, and there were huge lawsuits and court cases about tapping phones and when that is legal, and what you can do and what you can't do, and all of these. There's always this. You need to weigh the danger against. Actually, what are you doing? Why are you going in there? Why are you checking? And I don't think, what Lauterbach means is there's an illegal party going on. There's more than 10 people in a private residence, and normally, under the understanding we had of this article for the last, I don't know, what's it now, 70 years of our republic, you'd think the police can't go in. What they can do is they can knock on the door, but they can't even, they're not allowed to reach into your home, right? Unless you allow it. Like if you say, no, you're not allowed to come in here, and they're not allowed to listen, right? They can't put an ear in and go, oh, that sounds more like 10 people, right? So if you don't allow them in, they can't come in, they can't check anything. And I think what Lauterbach means is that that a pandemic now it's so bad that the police needs to be able to do this. which I do not agree with, because I think, yes, they can do. I think what this paragraph actually means is, if you have something in your residence that is causing, I don't know, if you have rats everywhere and they're causing the plague, right? Under some circumstances, the state can come in and clean that up. Or if you're sheltering people that are infected, and we're talking like Ebola and people are dying, then they can actually get you out, right? But even the Infektionsschutzgesetz, the law I talked about on the show quite a few times in the beginning when this all kicked off, about what to do in case of epidemics and stuff like that, says like the exceptions to personal freedoms in there are mostly, if you refuse quarantine, the state can put you in quarantine. But you need to be sick for that, and you need it's not like if you like, okay, I'm gonna quarantine in my private residence and I'm not going out, right? They can't come in and take you out and put you in a hospital because you're already quarantining. And I don't think they can just come in and do checks, like how many people are here in your home, where they're from. And I think this is very important, because it's not only about the parties. This is what people don't understand. You're listening to this, you understand, but I still have to. This might be an argument for you if you're talking with somebody who doesn't understand it, right? What people don't understand is, like, once you allow this, it's like for everything, and because this also governs surveillance. Once you allow them to come into your residence to check if people are there, they could put a Trojan on your computer. They could like tap your phone to check if you're like inviting people for a party. That sounds far-fetched, but it really isn't. Like, it really isn't. That is literally in this article. This is literally what this article governs. And if you think that, just checking if you have an illegal party, if that qualifies for paragraph 7 of this, then it'll qualify for everything else. So I think the just police not randomly, but just checking if there's people, if there's an illegal party going on, is not a high enough danger, danger in delay, so to speak. They're not as this talks about lives at stake, right? The other exceptions to this is like, yes, the police can come into a private residence. There's a life at stake, especially like if there's kids' lives at stake. So this is about parents beating their kid and then saying, you can't come in here, this is my private residence, right? If they know, if they have hard, not really evidence, but if they have if they can show that there's actually danger, or there was danger, after they did it, if you sue the state, then they can show, well, he was beating his kid, and the kid was shouting for help and was help me, right? Then they can come in, right? But this is like danger to your life, right? And the virus that has like a death rate of 0.04% or something like this, theoretically spreading. They're checking if there's people there that might theoretically spread this virus. I don't think that is a high enough bar to qualify for this. And I'm shocked. I don't use this word often, but I am shocked that a member of the Labour Party would go so far and put his head in the ring and basically stake the claim that we need to discuss this now. We need to enter private residences because there's all these illegal parties going on. If you allow the police to go in for something like this, they can go in for anything. It almost makes me speechless, and I'm not often speechless. This is, I was really mad about this today. I was really, really mad. So one of the reasons why this podcast is so late in recording, that I went out running for 14 kilometers to get rid of. I like to do that. First of all, I'm trying to get more fit and lose some weight and gain some muscle, but also and gain some cardiovascular fitness. But it's also, I need this. I realized when I was working for a publishing company, and I couldn't do that. I couldn't just, like, if I had enough, I just couldn't go out and run for an hour and a half. Like my blood pressure would just go. I think I was close to actually, having serious health effects. I don't know, having getting some cardiovascular disease or like an ulcer or something. And it really helps me to go out and run now. And I'm much more relaxed now. So this is unranty, relaxed fab. Because I did that. I really had to do that. So, yeah. This is the point, I think, where I need to play you something that, speaking of this and why it's so important and why we have to just look after, I reiterate all of this, but we have to look after our civil liberties and our rights as citizens in cases like this, because it's not necessarily about the cases like this. It's about creating precedent and people accepting intrusion. It's like my mask thing, right? I've did a video about this today, and people are really fighting me. And if you want to see, that's on my blog fab.industries. But that's neither here nor there. It's a kind of about I'm not against masks, but I'm just cautioning. I'm just saying we need to be careful to just get people used to things like that, and get people used to lockdowns and used to intrusions into their civil liberties, because they will accept that. And it's like once the state takes that, it'll get worse and worse and worse. They never roll it back. They never roll these things back. And so I'd like to play you something that is one of my favorite speeches. This is a speech from the Star Trek Next Generation episode, The Drumhead, in which Captain Picard, the episode's about a member of the Enterprise crew who is on trial for being a Romulan, a spy, because they have a war with the Romulans and they're getting really paranoid. It's kind of like a McCarthyian, the Red Scare thing, kind of like that. And Picard protects his crew member, and then they go after Picard. And they talk about, before he gives the speech, they talk about him. It used to be a Borg and attacking the Federation and stuff like that. And there is this lawyer who was on the other side, who's basically putting him on trial. And Picard quotes a quote from her father to her, and then she gets really mad. But his speech is really great, and it is so pertinent. I mean, this is science fiction, but this is something that's really important. And before I play this, one thing that cracks me up about it, by the way, well, it doesn't crack me up, it just amazes me, is that the people who are in, a few years ago when this all wasn't an issue, they're Trekkies, right? Real progressive people that that I'm friends with and that I follow on Twitter and stuff like that. They were all over this. They were like, yeah, this is a great speech, freedom, and this is really important. But then at the moment where actually our freedoms are under attack, they're like, no, it's great that they force us to do all these things because it's really important. And they suddenly forget about what they saw on Star Trek Next Generation, right? They forget about, they're all Firefly fans, right? They all watch Firefly. They forgot about what Firefly stands for, right? The outcasts, the people that actually went and rebelled against the draconian government, against the totalitarian government taking their freedoms away and lost. But still, it's the thing Mal says, it might have been the losing side, still not convinced it was the wrong one. Still being on that side and still standing up for their rights and fighting the losing cause. And I forget all about that, right? Once that goes over into real life, that, no, we have to do what the government tells us. It's like, what? 2 years ago, you were quoting, you're applauding me when I quoted Firefly. And now it's like, do what the government tells you. I mean, so I think the speech is really important, and I'm keeping this on the soundboard because I have a feeling we'll need this again. So everybody, listen to Captain Picard because he knows what's going on.
There are some words I've known since I was a schoolboy.
Okay, it's doing that. I really need to fix this. Anyway, I need to play this again and just seamlessly edit it out afterwards. We'll fix it in post.
There are some words I've known since I was a schoolboy. With the first link, the chain is forged. The first speech censured, the first thought forbidden, the first freedom denied, chains us all irrevocably. Those words were uttered by Judge Aaron Satie as wisdom and warning. The first time any man's freedom is trodden on, we're all damaged.
Now I fear we're already there. I fear the first link has been forged, and I fear we are already chained irrevocably. Now, the thing I have hope for, at least in Germany, is that they continue to do all these things as kind of policies, right? This is Merkel going to the federal state, to the heads of the federal states, and they're doing it. They're pushing down policy. They're not making laws. There's still no pandemic law in Germany. There's no law that regulates when you have to wear a mask. There's no law that regulates the lockdowns. And there's a good reason for that, I think. I think the reason is that they know they can't do this. I mean, in the beginning it was understandable. They were like, it takes too much time, I guess. But, I think the real reason is that they don't want to do that now because they know. So they have to put this law together. And then at the moment they'll get it through parliament. That's not the problem. Everybody there agrees with this. They're all the government. They like to have control over people, I guess. I don't know. Or they think the world's really gonna end. But the moment it's out, there will be lawyers who have free time. And there will be lawyers who the job of a lawyer is to, it says in German we call it Rechtspflege. The job of a lawyer and of a judge, but also of a lawyer, is to nurture the law. And lawyers are taught in law school that when they see a law that they think is not just, that they need to take the appropriate steps. And if you have something like this, if the government publishes a law like this, and you think it's against the Constitution, then you go to the Constitutional Court, and this will happen. There will be lawyers who will do that, and I think the government knows that what they're doing is not based on an understanding of the constitutional basics and of our understanding of the law. The Constitutional Court, I think, will not agree with the government on this, as that court in the U.S. said, that I read from their opinion a few episodes ago. They said about the U.S. Constitution, the Constitution does not accept the concept of a new normal, and I think that's the same thing in Germany. I think you can't just make a Grundgesetz. You make basic freedoms, for the people, the law of the land, people living in the land, and say that is universal, right? That these are the universal rules of our state, and then live by them for 70 years, and then go, oh no, now something happened that completely changed, and it's a new normal. That doesn't work. Our constitution in Germany was born out of World War II. And it was born in the understanding that if we ever have another war like that, it will still apply. That the government can't go, oh no, we're now involved in a war. That's a new normal. That's not what the Constitution was ever meant for. And we're not in a war, right? The situation is not as bad as World War II, right? We're not being bombed. Anyway, I feel like not everything's lost until they, because currently they're operating, and I think it's pretty much the same. I hear a lot from the US. I read news from the US, from Canada, from my friends in the UK. I talk to them, and I feel like the situation is the same everywhere. They're not making these laws. It's still all just policy. People just, yes, they currently they go along with it, but they can stop, and I still have a hope that that's going to happen. So, think about think about Captain Picard. Think about our freedoms and why it's important to be watchful, even for little things, even for the police, wanting to check if you have 10 people in your home that are not supposed to be there. It is not the job of the state to care about that. They can make rules and they can tell me I shouldn't have 10 people from another household in my home. But they have no business checking. They have no business knowing. The state has no business knowing certain things. And if that hampers their ability to do something, so be it, right? We don't allow them to willy-nilly, tap phones. I mean, they could probably, it would make fighting crime a lot easier if they could just tap everybody's phones, of course. I mean, it would make a lot of things easier if they could just force us to wear like a tracking beacon wherever we go. It would make a lot of things easier, right? They could plan for traffic much better. So that's not the point. That's not the point. It's not, they have no business knowing that. They have to do their job, or what they think their job is, without intrusions like that. But anyway, I'm not going to go on further. I think it's now time to switch to our next topic, because, we're talking about fighting crime. And speaking about fighting crime, so I want to talk a little bit more about this Cyberbunker case. I wrote a blog post about this that includes a lot of details that you can also read. It's on fab.industries. I put a link in the show notes. I'm not going to duplicate everything I wrote there in the show notes because I thought that was kind of, that was superfluous. So I'm going a lot by what I wrote in this blog post. So if you want to read up on that, just follow the link. And as I said, I was in Trier for this Cyberbunker lawsuit when the German prosecutors for the first time are trying to convict the owners and operators of a hosting company for what their clients did. So normally in Germany we have it's kind of like safe harbor in the US concerning hosting companies. So in Germany it works like this. If you run a hosting company, you really have no business because of data privacy to know what's going on the servers of your clients. And as long as you don't know, you're not responsible for it. So if you rent a server to somebody, you have no business knowing what they're doing with that server. Now, if they run an illegal website, you don't know, you're not responsible for that. The moment where this safe harbor starts to stop protecting you is if you get told. So let's say you're in a hosting company, you're renting out a server to people running an illegal drug marketplace, right? And then the police finds this website, finds out where it's hosted, and contacts you. Or, some other member of the public, might have found the website and there's something illegal on there. But let's go with the police example. The police goes and says, well, this is your servers, there's illegal stuff on there. Then you need to act. If you're in a hosting company, you're acting in good faith. You will take that server down. You make it inaccessible. You will cooperate with police if they say, okay, we need the copy of the server, or even if they say, don't take it down because we're investigating it, right? You need to probably follow their orders and comply with what they're doing. And generally, hosting companies do that, especially in Germany, quite readily, which is why bulletproof hosters come in, right? If you want to run a questionable website, you want a hosting company that doesn't comply with this, with state requests like that. And I said it was kind of amazing that this happened in Germany, right? That the Cyberbunker company was run in Germany, because you'd think, I don't know, if the police comes along and you're not cooperating with them, they will get suspicious, they investigate you. And you can't really, bribe them. I mean, you're not like in a country where that's easy and generally works. So now looking into the background of this, so it turns out the guy who owned this hosting company, who bought the server, was a Dutch guy. And so he bought this server. He apparently is quite smart, actually. He has a penchant for running foundations, like publicly, oh God, what's the word I'm looking for? I'm going to have to look this up. What's the English word? Charitable, of course. So he's running, like, he always opened up like non-profit charitable foundations, and this is the same. He had a foundation like that in the Netherlands, and he bought this bunker. And the story is actually, so the Bundeswehr, this was like a German army bunker in Traben-Trarbach in Rhineland-Palatia, on, like, I've explained, on the mountain, whatever. So it was used as a weather analytics base. So basically there were lots of people trying to predict the weather in places where the Bundeswehr was operating. So, in Afghanistan lately, and in 2012, this office of the Bundeswehr, as meteorological office, moved somewhere else. And then, which was bad for the town there, because, obviously it's a small town, there was a lot of jobs. But then the federal real estate agency, who, obviously owns all the federal real estate, wanted to sell this bunker. And nobody was going to buy it, especially for 450,000 euros, especially because it's not only that price, but you need to maintain it and it needs a lot of maintenance. They had a lot of people living there at all times, the Bundeswehr, because you needed a lot of people to live there so it wouldn't flood or, whatever. You need a lot of maintenance, and nobody would buy it. So this Dutch guy turns up and says, I want to buy this bunker. I'm going to turn it into a, data center, and it's going to be like state of the art. And, all these international companies, they will rent servers there because it's going to be great. It's going to be very secure. It's in a bunker. That's a good selling point. And I'm going to create like 100 or 200 jobs for the local economy. So they were kind of like, the local council was kind of like, okay, I guess you can buy that. There were some people being suspicious. And so the mayor at that time actually did some research on this guy. And he found out that this guy used to own a bunker before this. So this was like Cyber Bunker 2.0. I think they even called it that. And this guy used to own a bunker, which he bought in the 90s in Kleutingen. I hope I say that correctly, which is near Goes, which is in Zeeland, which is actually, I used to go on holiday quite close to that a lot. And this was like a Dutch nuclear bunker from the Dutch army from like the 50s, which was sold in the 90s, and he bought that. And he, he bought the bunker, and because he likes bunkers, the New Yorker did a great story on this, which I also link in my blog post. And they say a colleague they interviewed called the guy Bunkergeil, which is like a German neologism. I mean, geil means horny. So basically he was horny for bunkers. He always liked bunkers. And he had this idea, put a data center in there. And, they hosted the Pirate Bay at some point. They hosted WikiLeaks at some point. And so he had this first bunker, but that also was very expensive to maintain. So it turns out he rented out part of the bunker, like a machine shed on the side, to just another company. He sublet it basically, and it burnt down. Like the bunker, large parts of it burnt down in 2002. Burned for like 3 days, temperatures like 2,000 degrees, whatever. The guy who owned it had to go to hospital because probably he got burns, I think, on his face and whatever. They had to like get him out of the bunker. And so investigators looked at why this fire happened, and it turns out there was an illegal ecstasy lab in the part he had rented out. Now, he always maintained that he didn't know. I think he said it was just, he thought it was a painting company. What would they do in a bunker? But okay. And so he never got indicted. I think he had his business license suspended, but, I guess he got it back. Anyway, the company moved their servers from this bunker to, I think, just a normal data center in Amsterdam. And, for years, they just had servers somewhere else. It was still called Cyberbunker. It was still a bulletproof hoster, but, they were just hosted somewhere else, not in a bunker. So, and this guy was like, okay, and he was only for bunkers. He wanted a new bunker. And so he was quite rightly probably thinking, with that ecstasy lab, I didn't get indicted, but, the Dutch authorities were kind of suspicious, I guess. We're probably not going to get a new, the Dutch government is probably not going to sell me another bunker. Also, there are not that many bunkers for sale in the Netherlands. And then he went to Germany because, Germany has a lot of bunkers. Germany, obviously, being in a strategic location, especially center of Germany in the Cold War, has a lot of old bunkers, old NATO bunkers. And so he toured a few, and then he decided to buy that one in Trabach. Now, he was... So the old mayor of Trabach found out about this first bunker that burned down. It was suspicious. And he actually told the federal police, I think the federal state police, and they actually told the Federal Real Estate Agency. But they went like, okay, no, we're just going to ignore this because there's nobody going to buy this bunker. So they sold him the bunker. He moved into the bunker, started the company, and the local prosecutor, who is now prosecuting this case, said in another interview that he was actually, when they moved in, he heard from the people on the council that were suspicious. They actually looked at this company and they looked at the website and they were like, okay, this looks like they're hosting illegal sites. It's kind of like, they're pretty clearly, like, they're not saying it directly, but they're pretty clearly implying that, I talked about this last episode, why they thought that, but, pretty clearly implying it's for illegal websites. But he decided not to prosecute, not to start an investigation, because he thought, or the people in charge at the time thought that it would be hard. Giving that safe harbor thing, you'd have to prove that the hosting people know. It's hard to prove that because of, civil rights in Germany. It's not easy to get a lawyer, to get a judge to give you a warrant to tap their communications by just saying, hey, we think they're doing something illegal, right? The level you have to go to get that is quite a lot higher. So they were like, yeah, it's probably really iffy to prosecute them and then going to a case, which is interesting because that's exactly what's happening now, right? So that's a case they're having now. So they basically were thinking in 2012, 2013, that this case they're having now was gonna be hard to win. So it's gonna be really interesting if they win that. It's also like really a landmark case because if they lose it, then it's we don't have precedents in German law as such, but it's gonna send a signal, right? It's gonna send a signal that it's really hard to prosecute people for something like this, especially in this case where they clearly did something illegal, but it's kind of hard to convince the judge. And then Germany might become like a new paradise for bulletproof hosters. So that would be interesting. So why did they start this prosecution? Which I didn't know that when I did last week's episode. And this is great. So you dig into the story and the story gets better and better and better. By the way, just a quick aside, I interviewed that prosecutor, of course. And, of course he said, there wasn't a single legitimate website on that. So that's on the server. So that's interesting just in the, with the privacy angle. So I guess nobody was hosting just a privacy oriented service on those servers. But still, the thing is the restrictions the police have in investigating people doing something illegal, are the same, right? they get these warrants and all of that before they prove that these people are doing something illegal. They're doing that in a trial. So, they might, if they investigate you, or anybody who's just privacy conscious, even if you haven't done anything, they have to reach these hurdles are the same. It doesn't really matter that these people are criminals. It's just interesting from a privacy and civil liberties standpoint, what the police can and can't do. And that's one of the big reasons I'm talking about this. I mean, the other reason is people told me they found it interesting, and I find it interesting, and I like to talk about it. But I think that's just to bring it back to what we're doing here and why that's important. It's important to learn what the police can and cannot do, because, from their point of view, they don't know if you're a criminal or not, right? That gets decided in court, and we would like to know what protections we have and what protections we don't have. So why did they investigate? Why did they investigate this case? This is hilarious. So they were like, okay, we don't know. They're probably doing something illegal, but it's going to be really hard to prove. Then in 2015, an Irish tabloid, the Sunday World, did a story where they so there's an Irish mobster, a guy who is well known as a big figure of the underworld. He was involved in gang wars allegedly. Is one of the biggest importers of drugs into Ireland, and he's been in jail in Ireland, I think 2 times in the 80s and 90s. He's been in jail in the Netherlands. I think he operated out of Ireland, and then the Irish authorities in the 90s passed a law where they could seize assets and money and stuff that they could prove was obtained illegally, and so he moved his operation to Amsterdam. And this is apparently where this guy is. He's known as the Penguin because he's kind of stout and waddles when he walks, apparently. Also by the alias, he's known by the alias Mr. Green, which is what he went by in this whole in this case. Apparently he knew the guy who bought the bunker. So apparently Mr. Green, let's call him Mr. Green, used to be involved in the 90s in stealing computer parts, and there was huge millions and millions of dollars of computer parts were stolen. And the Dutch guy who ran the bunker apparently used to own a computer stores. And so this is all just rumors, but they know each other from back then. That's the rumor. Maybe he bought some stolen parts. I don't know. Or he helped him with, tech know-how. We don't know. But apparently they know each other. And so the Irish tabloid was doing a story because nobody had seen this penguin for 20 years. There were just old photos. And, when he went to the Netherlands, nobody knew where he was. He was still operating. They knew he was importing drugs into Ireland, but nobody hadn't seen him, right? And they got a tip, an anonymous tip, which, according to the Spiegel, who saw some investigative files, came from the cyberbunker. So apparently an intern in the cyberbunker gave an anonymous tip to this Irish tabloid and said, by the way, this mobster, because he was they were writing about him, I guess, this mobster is actually in Traben-Trabach. So the tabloid sent a reporter who, it's a small town. They surveilled everybody, and they found, or they got a tip like that he was hanging out at a certain restaurant or whatever. And they saw regularly the guy who owned the bunker, which they didn't know. But they researched him later and stuff like that. But anyway, that guy, he was hanging out with the penguin. Like they were going for breakfast. And interestingly, so the Dutch guy who owns the bunker, who's the main defendant in the case, there are more Dutch people indicted and on trial right now. 2 of them are the Dutch guy's sons. They're also Dutch. And then there is his ex-girlfriend, and I think their mother. I think she's their mother. Anyway, also on trial. The sons worked in the bunker. The older son was helping his dad run it, and also driving people around. He was kind of like the chauffeur. The younger son was an admin, did the website, allegedly. All allegedly, they're not convicted. Also, I'm not using their names. If you go to the blog post, I explain what that is. It's just a German press thing. That, I mean, if you can find out their names, but I don't want to. I want to keep press standards we have here in Germany. There's rules. They're kind of self-patrolled by the press, so they're not laws. But I like to abide by them because I like to be an ethical journalist. Anyway, so they were all together. There's another guy, another Dutch guy who started working as doing random jobs, and then later got promoted, and it was the owner's right hand later, and the other people just as I think two Germans, then a Bulgarian guy, and they were just the admins. But they both belong all together. But they were meeting this Penguin guy. The owner and one of his sons was always driving him back and forth. They was driving him to a restaurant, eating breakfast. And so this reporter actually surveilled, like they were shadowing these people, and then took pictures of the Penguin leaving the restaurant. And then published a big story in the Sunday World. I think it was titled The Lost Godfather, where they said, look, this mobster is actually in Traben-Trabach, and he's hanging out with this guy who runs a bunker, who has this shady hosting company. And this is when the prosecutors, all the alarm bells were going off. They were like, organized crime, Irish gangsters in our little town. What the fuck's going on? And this was in 2015, end of 2015. This is when they started investigating. And this is also how they started investigating, because it turns out that all the warrants they got for shadowing people, for tapping into the fiber lines to the bunker at like the next internet nexus, for tapping their phones. So apparently this Penguin guy had 16 phones. He always carried a bag with 16 phones with phone numbers written on the back. And they tapped all of them, all the numbers. They tapped all of them. And they got all those warrants from a judge by basically saying, look, this is like a crime boss from Ireland. And he's hanging out with these people who we knew were shady, but we kind of didn't want to bring a case because blah, blah, blah. And so they got all of it. Like they put GPS trackers on all of their cars. They shadowed them 24/7 when they left the bunker. They tried to surveil the bunker, but because of the fences and everything, they just couldn't get close enough. They actually sent in an informant who worked as a gardener. And that's also how they arrested them. So the gardener claimed that he later, years later, this is in 2019 when they arrested everybody. The gardener said, I got an inheritance unexpectedly, and I want to invite everybody, the whole bunker crew, to dinner. And they went to dinner, and so the police, this was 650 police officers. At the same time, they were all down in town in a restaurant. They arrested them, and at the same time they broke into the bunker and got all the servers. So this is actually quite interesting. But they got all of that because they were saying organized crime. Now the interesting thing is they never indicted this Penguin. He left. So there's reports that he was he got kind of disillusioned with the guy who owned the bunker, and the last time he was cited in Traben-Trabach was 2017. Since then he's completely underground. He's gone. Nobody knows where he is, and they didn't even indict him. There are 8 people on trial. They indicted 6 other people who weren't there, who were on the run, but never indicted this guy. Which is an interesting aspect to the case, seeing as they got all the surveillance because of that guy. But apparently they could never tie this Penguin dude down and connect him to this. Because apparently, whenever he was using unencrypted communication, he would just talk in code. Like he would talk about, allegedly he was importing drugs from Spain. He had a house in Malaga. And he was always talking about oranges and where to sell the oranges. And they just couldn't prove, I guess, that he was actually involved in criminal activity. They knew, it's kind of obvious, but proving that is different. Now the interesting thing is apparently he gave them the money to buy that bunker. Apparently he funded the bunker, and it seems to be that these people who ran the bunker, who were kind of saying we didn't make any money, were kind of right. I think they made very little money and spent most of the money they got. I mean, one of the reasons the prosecutor actually told me, one of the reasons they were pretty sure that this was an illegal operation is because their hosting fees were like 4 times what you pay for normal hosting. And, there must be a reason for that. So apparently even with that, like the bunker was so expensive to maintain, and all the power, like most of the money they made went out again to pay for the power apparently. So nobody was getting rich. So apparently this Penguin guy also used the Dutch guy who owned the bunker as kind of like a tech advisor. And they were actually working on, apparently, according to these investigative files, that the New Yorker found something out. The what's it called again? Sunday World. They found, the reporter there found something out about this, and then the Spiegel did also some research. But it looks like this Penguin guy wanted to reach retirement age. He has some kids, and he was afraid that all the money he'd earned it was clearly from illegal activities and could be seized at any time, or when his kids inherited it or whatever, and he wanted to convert some of that money into legal money. And his idea was to create an app, a phone app, like encrypted phones, like the EncroChat device I talked about in a previous episode. And he was actually working on something like this with the guy from the bunker who was helping, and then a company in Poland who was writing the apps. And apparently they sold it to the Colombians, to the the Mexican cartel, the big Sinaloa cartel, the Colombian cartels. Apparently the Bandidos biker gang, they sold these phones, and because the Penguin wanted that, because creating encrypted phones and selling them is not illegal. So that would be like legal, basically theoretically legal money. And the owner of the bunker was doing it because he needed something to make money, because the hosting bunker thing wasn't doing it. And it's also, you learn a lot about that guy, and the New Yorker story is great for that. It's like a personality piece on the guy, and basically it's not really clear. It wasn't really like a career criminal. Mostly he was like it just sounds like an idealistic guy, right? He had few quirks. He wanted to live in a bunker, always dressed like in a black leather trench coat, stuff like a nerd, right? And he was apparently, or he is, a very like idealistic. He was, kind of like they proclaimed the cyber bunker republic at some point. It all sounds like very John Perry Barlow. It's a declaration of independence of cyberspace and all this kind of stuff. So it was kind of idealistic. So he wasn't really a businessman. He wasn't a really good criminal, it sounds like, business-wise. So I just thought that was there's an interesting twist to the story. And this is going to be a very interesting case. And it's probably going to take a while. And there's a lot at stake, as I mentioned. So I'm going to keep an eye on this. I think I explained to you all the civil liberty stuff that I find interesting. Now, from now on, the thing that's important for this show about this case is how they decide, basically what legal precedence this sets, right? How investigators and the police and the state will deal with hosting companies in the future, because that also applies to like hosting companies who host private privacy conscious email services, for example, like mailbox.org, which is my email provider. They only, I think I talked about this in the past, they only comply with state orders when they have to. And if these rules get changed, if it's just interesting to see how this will impact police and police powers and state powers as hosting companies are concerned. I think that's interesting to pretty much anybody who listens to the show, right? I mean, so I'll keep you updated on that. So I thought that was interesting to have a bit of an update and a bit more details into the story, which I just thought that penguin angle was just great. I think that's interesting that they just started investigating because of that. And if you want more details, privatecitizen.press, have a look at the show notes and the blog post I linked there. There's a lot of stuff in there. And with that, we get to the point in our show where I talk about producer feedback. And I had kind of hinted last episode that there'll be a lot of feedback because there's some stuff I held back. There's some stuff I need to edit a little bit. And so we have a lot of feedback here. Sorry, I need to drink some more tea here to lubricate my voice. So settle in. There's some feedback coming, quite a lot. But as I always say, I value your feedback very much. So please, if you have any, go to privatecitizen.press. In the feedback section, there's a link. There's a link in the page footer. I can be reached in many ways, and I value your input very much. So please, stop being a listener, become a producer, and be part of the show. Maybe you have some input, some ideas on that. You think I'm wrong. You think maybe I'd be very happy in you just telling me what kind of topics you want to see covered. I think that's very valuable because I would like some input from people about that. Just if you have thoughts and ideas, just let me know. So we have a correction. So I got an email from Captain Egghead. And Captain Egghead says, "Thank you for your work on the Private Citizen podcast. By now I've listened to about 10 episodes. I do think they provide good value, and I should probably dedouche in a proper way in the near future." Just a side note, that's Captain Egghead is probably a No Agenda listener, which is cool. Dedouching is a term, in No Agenda parlance, they invented the value for value model, and if you derive value from the show, but you're not giving value back, you're a douchebag. And people, write them emails and call out their friends who they know listen to the show, but haven't donated to the show, and call them douchebags. And then you can dedouche yourself if you actually sent them in a donation. So just for people who are not aware and who do not listen to this podcast, I wanted to explain the terminology. Anyway, Captain Egghead goes on. "Meanwhile, just a small comment / correction, a bit off topic, but since it's the second time I hear you saying that, I could not resist mentioning it. In episode 42, hitting my microphone stand. In the episode 42 comment section, while talking about the scientific method, you said, quote, 'For thousands of years it's been accepted scientific fact that the earth is flat,' end quote. I also recall you said something similar in a past episode referring specifically to Galileo. I'm sure that you are aware that the, quote, known truth challenged by Galileo was not the Earth's, quote, flatness, but it's being stationary and the center of the universe. After all, he is associated with the phrase, quote, 'and yet it moves,' not, quote, 'and yet it is round,' or something. The, quote, roundness was known and measured." He puts that in quotes. He also says in his signature that he is a round Earth conspiracy theorist. It's funny. Okay. The quote, "roundness was known and measured, and at least since the time of the ancient Greeks, and most likely the, quote, accepted truth in Galileo's time as well, via Aristotle. Nevertheless, you have already made this slip of the tongue twice, so it's interesting to note how well rooted the, quote, myth of the flat earth, end quote, is. Either that, or maybe you are a flat earther yourself, which would be even more interesting." I have to disappoint you on that. I'm not a flat earther. I am... Well, I've watched most recently I've watched the Apollo 11 thing again. The movie in the cinema, which I thought was great, which had a lot of awesome footage that I've never seen on the TV because I wasn't alive in the 60s. It's a great movie, by the way. If you get that anywhere, just watch it. It's great. It's just the mission footage, and it's not it's a documentary, but it's not narrated in any way. It's just they use mission control and the Cronkite on TV and just make a movie out. It's amazing. But I mean that clearly shows that the Earth is round. I mean you can literally see it. And since I do not believe that was fake, I'm quite sure that the Earth is round. But you are correct. I made a mistake there. And I just made a mistake. I don't know how sometimes these things get into your head and you don't think about them and you keep repeating them. So I'm glad, I'm very thankful to Captain Eckert, who provides a lot of value to the show right now by telling me that and by calling me out on it. And I think it's right. That was wrong. That was clearly wrong, and I made a mistake. And I should know that because I learned about this in school. So in 6th grade or something. So I should know that. But, that's just how it goes. This is why I have producers who call me out on stuff like that. So thank you for that. Fadi Mansour sent some very thorough feedback on episode 42. I've shortened this a bit just for brevity's sake. Fadi says, I want to focus on a point that you mentioned while talking about the response to COVID-19. I think you mentioned something to the effect that more regulation will probably result in more corruption. It was relatively late that I learned of this distinction between small and big governments. And as I mentioned, for me, this is now an important factor to consider when discussing any decision. A big government might be useful to solve big problems, taking the devil's advocate's point of view and putting in mind something like climate change. So it might be an acceptable premise that the size of government should preferably be tuned according to the issues that need to be addressed. Unfortunately, by the way, we are generally just big on big government in Germany. I think since the Prussians, we love our bureaucratic apparatus, and that seems to be unconnected to whatever problem we're trying to solve. But that just is an aside. Unfortunately, what happens in reality is that whenever there are some new powers given to governments, they're reluctant to give them back. Yeah, I think this is an established historic truth. I think they never give them back. You have to force them with a revolution pretty much, or a civil war. It's not like you elect a new head of state or a new government. They're like, oh, those powers will just give them back. I mean, Obama is a great example. Obama always held up in the US, always held up as a shining example in comparison to Trump. Now, Obama inherited a lot of very draconian laws from George W. Bush, who put him in because of September 11th, and he never rolled any of that shit back. To the contrary, a lot of the shit with the putting people in cages that people now, political commentators are now putting in at Trump's doorstep, if you actually look up when that was put in place, when they started doing that, that was during Obama's presidency. I don't think it's Obama's fault. I think he actually wanted, he said he was going to get rid of Guantanamo Bay, never did it. I think he actually wanted to do that. I don't think that was an empty promise. I think, the president, it's like the same in Germany, the chancellor, the head of state, often head of a government, doesn't have that much pull, right? There's always this apparatus thing they call big government, right? That Trump's also railing against. But Trump's a good example, he's all draining the swamp. I actually feel like he actually wants to do that, but I think he can't at a certain level. I think you don't have that much power. You're still up against this whole established apparatus. But anyway, Obama's a great example. There's a lot of things that, he never rolled back. Which is, I think that's just the way it goes. I don't think that is so much Obama's fault. But we have to, well, people seem to kind of have forgotten that or something. They don't want to know that. Anyway, back to what Fadi says. Powers given to governments, they are reluctant to give them back. One might even say that it could happen that some parts of government would create circumstances where more government would be needed, and then we are in a vicious circle downhill. Yeah, I think that's, one could not only say that, I think there's good examples for that as well. So the point that I would like to raise is, when making a decision at a country level, a good point to consider would be, does this mean more or less government? And if more, does the benefit outweigh the risk? Unfortunately, what you see advertised is not the topic and the cost of the new measures, but sentimental talk about humanity, the global good, saving the children, etc., etc. I'm very skeptical when this kind of sentimental language starts to be used. For me, this is a warning sign that there's probably something nasty behind. I think Fadi makes a great point here and puts it in better words than I always could. I mean, that's the old child porn argument, right? Whenever they want more laws and they want to make it easier for the police to, they want to put Trojans on your computer, for example. In Germany, we had this discussion a lot, when they want to get rid of the inviolability of your home so they can put Trojans in your computer. It's always, oh my God, the child porn. Won't somebody think of the children? That's always the argument. And then never debating like the downside, as you say. I think that's you Fadi is a very good analysis here. Another interesting point that was raised is with regard to the science being settled. Here again, I would like to add that from what I see, our understanding of topics is still evolving. And some systems, like the climate or even our bodies, are too complex, and we keep discovering new facts that hopefully will increase our understanding. But to start with the premise that it's now settled and we need to take a big decision, increasing government sizes along the way, is a warning sign to tread very carefully. Again, something that is really, really true. I mean, just look up the things, just look up neuroscience, right? This is the thing I always went on about when I did like technical podcasts and I talked about, AI and stuff like that. We have no idea how the brain, we understand things, we understand how synapses work, we understand what neurons do, we understand to a certain extent how they work together, but, we don't know how the brain works. If we knew we could create, we'd be almost God. We don't know. When they cut your brain open and they do an operation, right? Those things when you're a writer and they make you write in the operation, or if you play a violin, they make the person play the violin, and then they do a test run. Then they kind of disable the part of the brain they want to cut out and see if you can still play the violin, because they don't really know. They need to, they need to test that shit. So I think this is very true. This is generally people are very enamored with science, and I'm a fan of science. I'm married to a scientist. No, I love science, but we need to understand what we don't understand, and that's a big part of it. It's like saying we know how to go to the moon. We were talking about the moon. We did that in the 60s. That doesn't mean we can do that with Mars. It's still a and now think about just leaving our solar system. Like what kind of the things we do not know, and that's the same. It's the same with our climate. Anyway, what we're talking about. Fadi says, it's a warning sign to tread very carefully. And just another point related to climate change. In the 70s, they were talking about the second ice age. And then it was global warming. And now, in order to reduce further embarrassment, the term to use now is climate change. So what exactly is settled? I think I agree with you on that as well. I talked about this before. I do not dispute climate change. I think it's happening. The problem is that people say, oh, it's man-made and we're the fault and we need to do this. Because I think Fadi, we don't know. We know certain things. We know that's happening, but I don't think we've understood how our climate works. And then there's always this bullshit thrown in. It's like, oh no, the Amazon's burning. It's the lungs of the world. You're like, shit, what lungs of the? Have you actually read anything actually scientific? Is your scientific knowledge like from a 5th grade science book? The lungs of the world. Anyway, Fadi goes on. And here I come to a sad point. Unfortunately, this guy is full of I'm not reading this out willy-nilly because I don't get any feedback, right? Fadi these are all very good points. And here I come to a sad point. Unfortunately, with the current global political climate, certain points of view are now being associated with certain labels. So either you're a right-wing anti-vaxxer, climate denier, conspiracy theorist, or you're a democratically minded, humanity-loving believer in equality. This is a big point of frustration for me. I would love to go beyond these labels and discuss the facts themselves and hopefully come to an agreement and better understanding. Dude, I'm so with you there. I mean, yeah, that's the thing I'm trying to do with this podcast. And I try to not put labels on people. Sometimes I do. I think we're all guilty of that. But yes, I think it's a good point. We all need to remember not to apply these labels and just talk about points. Just talk about arguments and data points. And it really doesn't matter if the person making the point votes Democrat or Republican, right? It's about the actual point that's what we should discuss. I think you're completely right there. This brings up the last topic, your comment to Martin, which I also second. It's important to have different points of view. It might happen that I agree with most of what you're saying, but it's also important for me to hear well-reasoned counter-argument. So thanks to Martin as well. And speaking of Martin, Martin also provided me with more feedback. And he was talking about Scotland and governments and stuff like that as well. So Martin says, the American Declaration of Independence is not based on a, quote, UK document, as you stated. They were at war, after all. It was supposedly inspired by the Declaration of Arbroath, which is a Scottish document dating to 1320. I probably said that wrong. My Scottish is suboptimal. Scots. Abraham Lincoln was a big fan of the egalitarian poet Robert Burns as well, by the way, and could quote him from memory in the original Scots. I think you misunderstood me there. I think I was looking up the Bill of Rights and saw that there are two Bill of Rights. There's the UK, the British one, and there's an American Bill of Rights. I didn't say that the Declaration of Independence was based on a UK document. You might have misunderstood me as well. What it was based on was UK understanding of the law, right? So the US legal system is based on the UK legal system. The US doesn't have, like, let's say the French and the Germans have civil law. It's based on the Roman legal system, and then there's the UK legal system, which is different. Common law, exactly. This is actually Flash Gordo, who's listening to this live. As I mentioned before, I'm streaming this stuff based on Twitch while I record the show. So sometimes I have live input, which is actually really handy. So the UK has common law, and we have a Roman-based legal system. And the US legal system is in many ways based, and their understanding and the Constitution, right, is based on the understanding of civil liberties that came from the UK. I know that they were at war, but that doesn't mean that they weren't influenced from that. It's also influenced by the French, the French Revolution, of course, and that kind of thinking. But that was the point I was trying to make. Anyway, Martin goes on. Scotland and England have their own separate legal systems. The Magna Carta predates the Act of Union of 1707. It means nothing to me. If you accept that Scotland is a country, and you may not, although it has existed since the 9th century, then I'm afraid it logically follows that it's not a democratic one. There's no better illustration of this than Brexit. Every single constituency in Scotland voted against Brexit, but it is being imposed on us anyway. I think you misunderstood me there again. I do not depends on your definition of country. What I said, what Scotland definitely isn't, is a sovereign country. But I'll go on and read a bit more about what Martin says, and then I'm gonna, because he later on talks about the German system, and I'm gonna answer that. So he goes on. We do elect MPs to the British Parliament, but they are outnumbered 10-1 and can decide nothing for themselves. In addition, since David Cameron instituted, quote, English votes for English laws in the, quote, British Parliament, elected representatives from Scotland are now second-class citizens there. There's also such a thing as the, quote, Scottish Parliament, but it is a parliament in name only and wasn't even called one when it was created. I was not joking when I said that Westminster has the power to close it down at any moment's notice. Quote, power devolved is power retained, as the saying goes. This is not like the German system at all. This is like everything that happens in Germany being decided by France. I don't know how you feel about the existence of Germany as a nation state and would genuinely be very interested to hear speak about that. But I'm guessing you wouldn't be happy to pay all your taxes to the French government and let them decide that you spend it, how to spend it, and how much to give back to you. And then he makes another point. So let me address this. No, it is like the German system, because Germany is a sovereign nation state. Scotland is not. Scotland may be a country, depends on your definition of country, but it's not a sovereign nation state. You are being governed by as you put it, the UK government. So, yes, you are part of a democratic nation. The democratic nation is the United Kingdom, right? There's some, usually it's easy. Usually you can go, are you a sovereign country? Do you have a football team, in the World Cup? Do you have an Olympic team? Now, it's special in the UK, which is like, that's a special case because, they have English teams and all of that bullshit. But generally, it's like that. To put it into the German system, it's like our federal states. They used to be mostly, they're mostly, not all of them, but some of them were kingdoms, right? The kingdom of Bavaria is now pretty much a federal state, because when Bismarck unified Germany, we can talk a little bit about Germany as a nation state. That would be a topic for its own podcast. It's not really privacy related, but if people are interested in this, I'd love to talk about this. It's what I studied in university for a long time. But it's kind of like, the Bavarians, they have a parliament. Every nation state in Germany has a parliament, and then we have a government, and then decide certain things. For example, education and healthcare. That's the thing I was going about with the coronavirus measures. Healthcare is something that's decided in the federal state, right? That's a state prerogative, and there are laws made there, and pretty much every federal state has a constitution. It's just it exists under the banner of the Federal Republic. So Bavaria is not a sovereign nation state. It's, in some regards, it's a state. It has a government. It has a democratic government. But they don't decide where. Roads are a bad example because they're federal roads, and they, for example, they don't make criminal law or something. The laws of the federal states are subordinate to the federal law. So the federal government makes the laws and decides where a lot of the taxes go. So it's kind of like that. You are kind of like, if the UK was a federal republic, you would be a federal state. Now, your case is for independence, and you want Scotland to be a sovereign nation, which I can understand, which is a discussion we can have. But right now, you're not. So you can't say you don't live in a democratic system just because you're not a the construct you live in is not sovereign. You are in a democratic system. You're in the democratic system of the United Kingdom. That is the case I wanted to make. Now, I understand, especially because I'm a German. So Germany's, just to go into this very, very briefly, Germany is very special as a historic construct, because when pretty much any other nation, when there were many, many nations in Europe, were already sovereign states, kingdoms. And they were, you had a French kingdom, right? The French, everybody who was French pretty much lived in a country, a sovereign nation with a French king. Now, all the Germans at the same time lived in little kingdoms. There was the kingdom of Bavaria. There was the kingdom of Saxony. There was a kingdom of, where I am. I think it was Cleve. It wasn't even a kingdom. I think it was just a barony. Germany was made out of all these different kingdoms, It was not a nation state. It was of course in the Middle Ages organized into the Holy Roman Empire, which broke into two pieces, and the western part was the Holy Roman, later called the Holy Roman Empire of the German nation, but it wasn't a nation. It wasn't a sovereign nation. It was just like a loose collection of kingdoms, which turned into the Deutsche Bund, which was they had a parliament, with the revolution, they had a parliament, but they were not a nation state. Until Bismarck in 1871 created Germany as a nation, Germany was not a nation. At this 1871, there are countries in Europe who were a nation for 500 years or much longer at that point. So Germany is very special. So when I understand the quest people have for independence, Scottish independence, Catalonia in Spain. I understand that. I'm not as supportive as other people would be, because I don't know. I think that's about being German. For Germany, it took so long to get unified, and for hundreds of years, there were in Germany. There was like this political pressure. It's like you now want Scotland to be independent. It was like that. Just we wanted to be one nation state, and that shaped so much of the German thinking. And the fact that it happened so late and in the way that it happened caused World War I, which caused World War II. So ever since I studied history, I've always been of the opinion that I didn't come up with this. This is a prevailing theory in German historical science, is that the fact that Germany, the way the German nation was founded, and the fact that it happened so late and in the geopolitical arena at that time is what basically caused World War I and World War II. That caused Hitler, because that caused what happened with the Nazi state, because basically the German drive to become a nation, Germany became a nation, and then the industrialization was going on. Germany felt so powerful, which is why Wilhelm, wanted everything. He wanted colonies in Africa. He wanted a fleet to rival the British. He completely overestimated Germany's power, because Germany was on this wave of nationalism. And of course, that caused World War I, which Germany lost because Germany overextended itself massively, gave a blank check to the Austrians. Like the dumbest, basically a carte blanche to do whatever they wanted. They started World War I. It was one of the dumbest moves in history, which then caused the French to have the Versailles Treaty, which was massively restricting to Germany, and which squeezed this national, once Germany got over having lost the war, this Versailles Treaty squeezed the German, our ability to have an army and a navy and all of that, and it crystallized the nationalism that was already there, that got dampened in the war, but then it crystallized it, and it everybody felt completely mistreated, right? We're this nation, we're this powerful nation. Oh, we just lost this war, and now everybody's we can't even have ships. And that is what caused a new wave of nationalism, which is what caused the Nazis. So Germany is very special. So if you ever talk to a German about independence and all this kind of stuff, it's very different. So I respect, as I said, I think from the beginning, I respect your quest for Scottish independence, and I understand as well as I can, from just being from a completely different country. I understand why you want that, and I get your points. I get your points that the UK is deciding things that the Scottish don't want. It's obvious in Brexit. It's obvious. But you can't say that you don't live in a democratic system because of that. I mean, you can say that, but it's wrong. You do live in a democratic system. It's just the system, while being democratic, is not, and while guaranteeing you rights, right, and freedoms and all this. I mean, you have the same freedoms as somebody who lives in, I don't know, Dundee, as somebody who lives in London. You have the same rights, and that's why you can't just say, oh, the Magna Carta doesn't apply. I mean, the police can't just come into your house and arrest you willy-nilly, right? They need a reason. They need a warrant for your arrest. That's the Magna Carta. If you didn't have the Magna Carta, your police could just arrest you for no reason whatsoever and just put you in jail. That's what they used to do before the Magna. That was the king. The king could just put you in jail and leave you there for 3 years. Don't have to justify it. There's no due process, nothing. So you have those rights, and they're very important. But I understand that you're saying, I want to change the system. Just don't say it's not a democratic system, right? Anyway, just to finish this up, Martin finishes his feedback with saying, far be it for me to defend Prince Charles. This is about the climate change thing and Davos and right. Far be it for me to defend Prince Charles, but I do think he is sincere when it comes to the environment, as he has been talking about it for as long as I've been alive. Also, I think it was unfair of you to completely dismiss real-world data on climate change and put it all down to computer modeling, but I'll leave it at that. You also completely misunderstood me there. I mean, there is real-world data, but the real-world data doesn't tell you that, it could tell you that climate change is man-made. I think that's a good assumption. I think that's a good interpretation of the data, but it doesn't prove it. Right? What we have is CO2 levels, real-world data, from the guy on Mauna Kea, from the 60s. They studied CO2 in the atmosphere, and it's on the rise like hell. And it's a good assumption, thinking we know that humans cause CO2 in the atmosphere. So I think that's a good assumption. What I'm saying is we don't really understand, or we do. Maybe we understand, but we really can't prove what that does to our climate, because the climate is very, 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 very complicated. And the way that they tend to prove that, and I put proof in air quotes here, is with computer models. Because you can't just measure and go, oh, it changes. If you don't, I'm just going to challenge you there. Look it up for yourself, please. That's what the show is about. Go on, start with Wikipedia. Look at the greenhouse effect. And read that. And do not accept what it says, but think, I want to know more. And look at that page has a ton of primary sources. Look at the primary sources and start reading scientific papers on how the greenhouse effect works. And you will pretty soon figure out what we know and what we don't know. There's a lot of things we don't know. There's a lot of things where they don't know how this gas does what it does. We have experiments where we did something in a lab on a very small scale, and then we extrapolate that, and we have computer models where you try to model the atmosphere, and it all goes in a certain direction, and that might even be right. That it indicates that this is happening, but it doesn't prove it, and that's my point. That's not how you prove things. It's like saying, it's like looking at the DNA, right? The double helix, right? And you're saying we have proof that that's how DNA looks like. We don't have proof that that's like DNA looks like. That's a model. We have very good microscopes, and we can look at DNA molecules now, and they can't. If you squint and you're like, yeah, it could. The thing is, the model explains everything we have observed, but we don't have a picture of the fucking molecule. We don't know yet. I mean, somebody will invent a microscope that does it at that resolution, and we can look at it. But yet we don't know. So it's not scientifically correct to say that's how DNA looks like. We have proven it. No, we don't. Same like we are very sure that black holes exist. Like, we have good indicators for that. We have certain things we can look at with telescopes, and pretty much the only way we have to explain what's going on in that the things we observe is a black hole. But we haven't seen one. We haven't gone there. We haven't shot a probe into it, right? We don't know how a black hole works. It's a theory somebody came up with. Rip Thorne and Einstein, I don't know. They came up with a really good theory, and it explains pretty much everything. We haven't proven it. right? That's the fine difference, but it's a very important difference, especially if you're saying, let's change all the policy worldwide and let's have a world government or whatever these Davos douchebags want to do. But that's my point. And also on Prince Charles, it's just like that fucker. He's never done anything in his life. I'm not listening to that guy. He's not a scientist. Why would I listen to a rich guy whose family has we just talked about the UK, like you're the guy who has a beef with UK Parliament and you don't have a beef with the Queen and their family, come on. I'll leave it at that to echo what Martin said. I think I need to come to an end here because my voice is rapidly going downhill here. But I also wanted to read out, I had a comment from Georges who supports the show, and he commented, I recorded a video. I've started doing these relatively short videos that I upload to YouTube and put on my blog, because I've realized that some commentary I do in writing doesn't work, and I want to give people the opportunity to see me while I'm talking about this. Anyway, I was talking about fear-based reporting and the pandemic and social media sites and problems with that. And he wrote a comment on that video that mentions this podcast, and I think it applies to this podcast as well, so I just want to read it out here. So George says, "Hey Fab, I would like to thank you for your courage." That sounds like a No Agenda thing as well. Your podcast and content. Thank you for your courage, your podcast and content like this. As a producer of the Private Citizen podcast, the views you express in this video are not new to me, but I still find value in hearing you talk again about these topics from a yet more personal viewpoint than what you embed in some show episodes. I was talking about, wearing masks and stuff, and my grandma, and deciding personally if my grandma is 99, and what applies, how careful do I have to be? Is it more important for me to visit her so that she has, in her last years, has personal contact? Or, will I not visit her so I could infect her with COVID, right? But then I was like, okay, but, I haven't done that in the last 2 or 3 years. And, she's at a point where, if she gets a bad cold, she might die. She might keel over any day, to be honest. And, this is a point where I was like, it's more important for me to give her physical, to have somebody there, right? To talk to her in her last years. She's 99, right? Anyway, I was talking about that. And George says, I have great respect for your attitude regarding your relationship with your grandmother, and I hope you both can maintain the opportunities to spend time together. Dude, I will, I'm not, like, you don't need to hope. I will make it happen. If I have to break through a police blockade to see my grandma, I will. Believe you me, the state will not stop me. Like Angela Merkel cannot stop me from seeing my grandma if I want to. I would die in that pursuit, I think, and I mean this. As for your views on social media, I share your opinion that it's not tech's fault per se. I was talking about how people say that, the problem with social media and the stuff Fadi mentioned, with that we can't discuss things anymore because everybody puts label on everybody. The press, and often the tech press, blames this on social media. But I was saying, it worked 10 years ago on social media. It worked 20 years ago on like forums and stuff. I don't think it's the technology. I think it's the people. I think the people changed. As for your views on social media, I share your opinion that it's not tech's fault per se, that most social media interactions and behaviors of the people who use them have taken a terribly wrong direction compared to the early times of the internet, when all was still very shiny and promising, and Silicon Valley still managed to make people believe they would turn the world into a better place with their tech products. Like with the example of the hammer or the knife, which both have proven to be most useful tools to humans, it finally lies in the responsibility of the human user if these tools can make life on this planet better or worse. However, I would like to point out the importance of the design, which, if well done, should provide safeguards against most malintentioned or evil use case scenarios. When due to the run for profit by laziness or simply stupidity, bad design is imposed. This means This may lead to negative effects, which are hard to counter afterwards, as more people find it hard to change their habits. As most people find it hard to change their habits once they are used, or should I write conditioned to some design, media, or tool. And I think that's the reason I want to read this out. I think Georges is extremely right on this. I think this is a very good point. I think, you're probably right. It's probably part of the system as well. Thinking about that, I was thinking about masks. I think this is one of the problems I have with masks, because it's not the mask per se and what it does. I mean, I'm for using it when it's solid. When we have solid scientific evidence that it works, or we at least have a good, we have good indications that it will work. That's enough for me at this point. But like, we're using it as it's been marketed for, or propagandized, for lack of a better term, to be the solution. It's like we get a vaccine and then that's a solution. And now the mask and people use it and they don't think anymore, right? And that's the problem. That's a problem like medical professionals brought up from the beginning. It causes people to be too sure of themselves. They think, wear a mask, everything's fine. Right, when it's more important to think about what you're doing and, I don't know, disinfect your hands and just think about what you're doing, where you're going, where you meet. I'm just not going willy-nilly to my grandmother, and I'm not like, I'm wearing the mask, everything's going to be fine. I think about these things. And it causes people to, I think, as Georges says here quite well, it's bad design. We're using it for a wrong thing, and it conditions people. It conditions people to certain things, and this will bite us. This will bite us in the ass. That's also my problem with like the taking freedoms away and the first link in the chain, as Picard calls it. We're conditioning people. That's the problem. We're conditioning people to behaviors that will come back to bite us in the ass. Anyway, I thank all of you for writing in. I value this feedback very much, as I always say. Please, anybody who listens to this and has opinions and has comments, please contact me. PrivateCitizen.press. Information how to do that is in those show notes. And I've mentioned this before, so make it short. We mentioned this on the show. This podcast operates on the value for value model. I'll give it to you for free. That will never change. What will change is if I can't make a living of this and other things, I'll have to get a job, and then I'll stop doing this podcast, because I tried to run the last podcast while I was working at the publishing company, and I couldn't make that happen. So I kind of need to be a freelancer to do these things, I think. And if you get value from this and you decide to de-douche yourself, as what was his name again, Captain Egghead says, then you help me with this. You help to keep the show running, and that's good for all of us. You can do that. You can go to Patreon. If you subscribe at the massively overpriced level of $30 a month, which I don't recommend, but if you do, you'll get a great shirt. I have now, I'm wearing it. It even smells good. Well, that might just be me. No, just joking. You get that, but you can pitch in whatever you want. There should be a level for everybody. If you don't want to commit to a monthly thing, you can do PayPal, producers@fab.industries, producers@fab.industries. You can send one-off contributions to that. I like to thank everybody who does that, and that's the last thing we're gonna do. First off, I need to thank Raoul Kabazadi, who wrote the theme tune that I use for this podcast, which is called Acoustic Roots. He's great song. I like to give him credit on every single episode. Also, I need to give credit to Bytemark at bytemark.co.uk, which is a UK hosting company. They're not in a bunker, but they're also not doing illegal things, I think. They just run service that you can rent. They gave me 2 for free. I use them to host the audio files. As you can tell, if you download things, it's very fast. It works. It's reliable. These servers are always there. I've never had a problem with Bytemark, so I love them for that. So I wanted to give them this. I want to credit them. And when they gave me the service for Linux Outlaws years ago, I don't think they knew that I was still going to do podcasts for 7-8 years or whatever long and mention them. And I try to do this every single episode here. So, and they've earned it. Those servers are great. And then I would like to thank everybody who pitched in, made this happen, helped me do this show. I love you all because I love doing this. I love doing my job, and you enable it. So thanks to George Walther, Niall Donegan, Michael Mullen Jensen, Jonathan M. Hathy, Dave Butterbeans, Mark Holland, Steve Hose, Shelby Kruver, Vlad, Kai Sears, Jackie Plage, One Eye, 11G, Philipp Klostermann, Jaroslav Lichtblau, Fadi Mansour, IKN, Matt Jelliman, Joe Poser, Dirk Didi, David Potter, Mika, Dave Umrish, Vitautas Sadauskas, Martin, Ricky M, Drive Zero, SJ, Jonathan Edwards, Barry Williams, Silvio, Mr. Amish, and Richard Gilson. Thanks to all of you. Thanks for keeping the show on the road. And that's it. That's it for this episode. Let's wrap this up. Once again, thanks for listening to the show. Okay. I do need another audio player. Wait. Thanks for listening to the show. Thanks for being part of it. Thanks for writing in. Thanks for supporting me. And I'll bring you another episode this week, I hope. If everything goes according to plan, we got it all set up. I have somebody I'm going to bring on the show, and we're going to talk about a topic that's very, very topical right now. So I hope I'll get that out tomorrow. If it doesn't happen, that's just how it goes. But I hope we'll get that done, and I'll continue to bring you episodes about topics I find interesting as often as I can. As I said, if you have any topics, please let me know. Contact details in the show notes. Until then, have a good time. Hope you can deal with the lockdowns as best as you can. And sometimes you just need to aim to misbehave. See you next time. Goodbye. Rightio. That's another episode in the can, as they say. Well, hopefully. Let's see if that recorded everything correctly. Audio player. Oh, actually, I should probably do that. Oh. Okay. I do need another. I have somebody I'm going to bring on the show, and we're going to talk about a topic. That sounds great. That sounds like I did it. Okay, so as you heard, okay, wait, I need to show you the screen again. There will be another episode tomorrow. So if you like my streams, you can go to fab.industries/stream. And as a stream schedule, it's at 17 CET, 7 p.m. today. I obviously didn't make that. I'll try. Sometimes it doesn't work. Tomorrow should be, that should work. So on Thursday at 9 p.m. CET, I'm going to stream another episode. Well, I'll go online then. Maybe I'll have to wait for my partner in crime to come online, but we'll do our best to do it at the right time. And would be great if I see you again. I'm gonna stop the stream now and just hurry up and get this episode released while it's still Wednesday when it should be out. I hope you had a good time. I hope you like me streaming this. Thanks to Flash Gordo for helping me out there with the term. That was really helpful. Yeah, that's it for me today. I'll see you tomorrow, hopefully. Until then, stay safe, stay sane, and aim to misbehave.